happy that we are now going to be joined by our next panel as we spotlight what is upcoming in Scotland 2022. Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, as some of you are joining us, I realize, from Scotland too. So with us today is Amina Shah, National Library for Scotland, Kirsten Bridier, National Trust for Scotland Foundation USA, Eileen Crawford, Glasgow Life, and Giles Ingram of Abbotsford Trust, Scottfest 2022. And the return later of Buster House to help us with the panel. So can we begin by introducing Amina, who is the Chief Executive and National Librarian for the National Library of Scotland and a member of the Library Board. Amina has more than 25 years experience in the sector, including public and academic libraries. As former Chief Executive of the Scottish Library and Information Council, Amina led the development of Scotland's first national strategy for public libraries. She has a strong interest in diversity and inclusion and the role libraries, literature, and culture play in empowering individuals and communities. In her previous role as Director of Programmes at the Scottish Book Trust, Shah worked to promote literacy and diverse reading and writing in the community of Scotland. Amina, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Camilla. Lovely to be here.
And we are looking now to the year of stories in Scotland. And so it'd be wonderful to hear the news from the library.
Yes, absolutely, Camilla. I have a few slides. Is it possible for me to share my screen and do those, or shall I just talk to them?
Absolutely.
All right, let me see if I can do that. Just give me 2 seconds. Slideshow from beginning. How do I? No, I don't know.
Jamie, can you help at all? Our technical person in the background.
It's actually, do you know, it's fine. You know, just instead of messing around, I'll just speak to you all.
Okay, lovely.
I have a few pictures of books to show you, but hello, and thanks very much for having me on this evening. It's lovely to be here. Yes, I am newly in post. I started in October, and I'm the National Librarian and Chief Executive of the National Library of Scotland. And we've got some exciting things coming up in March next year. We're hoping to open our new Treasures exhibition. So what I was going to do this evening is talk to you a little bit about some of the treasures that are coming up in that. In fact, what we have is still a secret in some respects, but I can give some of you a sneak preview. So for those of you who don't know the National Library, we are the National Library for the whole of Scotland. We're based in Edinburgh, and we also have a film archive in Glasgow as well. And we're one of 6 legal deposit libraries in the UK and Ireland, where we are entitled to request a copy of everything published in the UK. So we literally receive thousands of physical and digital items a day. And our collections hold the stories of the people of Scotland over centuries. They're absolutely fascinating. We provide access to our collections in our reading rooms, and we offer a rich programme of public events, outreach activities and exhibitions. We support traineeships in heritage skills, and we digitise our collections and make many of them available for free. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the exciting new gallery that we've got opening in spring in George IV Bridge called the Treasures Gallery. Now this is going to have a rotation of some of our treasures from the National Library. So the National Library of Scotland was founded officially in 1925. And before that, it was actually the Advocates Library. And so for years, you know, the advocates, for centuries, the advocates have been collecting amazing things from Scotland. And from 1798, they've been the Legal Deposit Library. And the Act of 1925 brought that into the public domain in the National Library of Scotland. So we have a huge range of books that are just prized and quite unique across the world, from the earliest printed books. And so we've got the first printed books, video installations, maps, medieval manuscripts, passports, letters, and we hope the Treasures Gallery is going to provide a unique insight into Scotland's history, its culture, its people, and its place in the world. If you think of the National Library of Scotland as the memory bank of the nation, then this is its manifestation, a showcase of our collective memory and a catalyst for individual imagination. We hope the gallery will prompt the question as well, what is a treasure? Is it an emotional connection? Is it the value of an object? Is it scarcity or the story that the object tells? As a legal deposit library, we have so many things. It does beg the question, what would be a treasure to one person might not be to another. So we're going to have an element of rotation in this collection. And some items will be on permanent display and others will change every few months. So there'll always be something new to see. And if the full list, as I said earlier, is still a secret, but I'd like to share a few of them with you just now. So we will be having The Lion in Mourning. So The Lion in Mourning is a collection of Jacobite papers dating from the 18th century, relating to Bonnie Prince Charlie. And they were compiled by Reverend Robert Forbes. What's especially interesting about the Lion in Mourning is that it includes a piece of the waistcoat lent by MacDonald's of Kingsborough to Bonnie Prince Charlie to disguise him as he fled, and disguise him as the maid of Flora MacDonald as he fled. And Flora MacDonald, I'm sure you'll all know, was a Jacobite heroine who aided his escape from the government forces. And also included in the display will be a pack of playing cards, and on them is a description of the Battle of Culloden and the fight of the Prince by Captain Felix O'Neill. We'll also have the Pont map. So at around 2 million items, our maps library is the biggest in Scotland and one of the biggest in the world. And we'll be displaying one of our cartographic treasures, the Pont maps, the earliest surviving detailed maps of Scotland made by Timothy Pont over 400 years ago. And the one in the picture, which I'm not able to show you just now, depicts an area of Stirlingshire. It's absolutely fascinating. I love looking at old maps. And one of the first jobs I had in libraries was in the Mitchell Library in the 1990s. And I remember going downstairs and being shown the amazing maps there too. And the maps that say parts unknown, where they didn't know where it was before. You know, they tell such a social history as well as the geography. They're amazing. We're also going to be showing Charles Darwin on the origin of species. So the National Library hosts the archive of the famous Scot publisher John Murray, who published and corresponded with some of the greatest minds and talents of his day. And we'll be displaying a letter from Charles Darwin to John Murray outlining the chapters of On Origin of Species, along with the publisher file copy edition. Like his father and grandfather, Darwin studied medicine in Edinburgh, and On the Origin of Species was a culmination of more than 20 years of work and had its roots in ideas that Darwin had begun to formulate during his time at the University of Edinburgh from 1825 to 1827. Now, John Murray publishers took a big risk publishing The Origin of Species at the time. But it was a big hit, and 1,250 copies of the first edition were printed and sold out immediately, and we have one. We're also going to be showing a copy of the Gutenberg Bible. So the Gutenberg Bible is arguably the most famous book in the world. There's only 21 complete copies remain in existence, and one of them will be in our gallery. We held a pop-up exhibition a few years ago in the National Library of Scotland, and we had queues of people round the block waiting to see it. It's something that really captures people's imagination because it's one of the first dated printed texts in Scotland. And it was the way that it was printed changed the way that the book and the codex is, because before that every book had to be written out by hand. So the Gutenberg Bible was the first that was printed using machines, which allowed printing to be much easier and books to be circulated so much more widely. I'm sure you all know Robert Burns' most famous song, A Fond Kiss. And in fact, it's his most recorded love song. He wrote the song in a letter to Agnes McLews. And here it is, well, in the picture, here it was, if I could show you it. Agnes was on the point of leaving for Jamaica to attempt an ultimately fruitless reconciliation with her husband. And Burns wrote the letter, what he thought to be his last to her, in December 1791. And we have the copy that we have in the library. You can see his hand and his writing saying, a fond kiss, and then we sever, a farewell, alas, forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee, warring sighs and groans I'll wage thee. And speaking of Burns, we've had tremendous support from the US and from the patrons, American patrons, for the campaign to save the Honorsfield Library. And we're incredibly grateful for that. And next week, we hope that we'll have a really exciting announcement to make on that front, but I can't give anything away just yet. For those of you who don't know, the Honorsfield Library is an amazing collection of manuscripts that was hidden It was owned by an industrialist, William Law, who was based in Haworth in Yorkshire. And he collected letters of Bronte and Austen and Scott and Burns. And these have been hidden from the public eye for well over a century. And now, thanks to the American patrons and to many others who've really helped us with this campaign, we've worked collaboratively across the UK with other libraries as well to save this and bring it into the public domain so that it can be shared and enjoyed by the public for the future. So we really hope that we're going to be able to welcome you all to Edinburgh at some point. If you are in town, please come into the library, please pop in and say hello. And if we aren't able to meet soon, please do have a look at our website. We'll be having a digital gallery and we'll keep in touch with everyone on social media. And we just love to hear from you. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Amina. And now, may I welcome back Kirsten Bridier, Executive Director of the National Trust for Scotland Foundation, USA. The Trust oversees over 73 properties spread across the breadth of Scotland. And Kirsten joins us today to share with us news of the year ahead for the National Trust for Scotland in the Year of Stories. And now welcome, Kirsten.
Thank you so much, Camilla. I'm excited to be here again today and to tell you a little bit about what the Trust is planning for the upcoming year. Just going to share my slides. Can you see that?
Perfect.
Great. So last month, I was thrilled to be able to take my first trip back to Scotland in more than 2 years. And I was really excited to see the extraordinary planning and preservation work that the National Trust for Scotland was able to undertake even during the pandemic. And a lot of this work was made possible by Americans who donated to our Save Our Scotland campaign, which helped the Trust to save more than 200 jobs during lockdown. So we're very grateful for that support from the US. And this afternoon, I just wanted to give you a brief tour of some of the new initiatives underway and what visitors can expect at Trust properties in 2022. So I'm going to start with one of the Trust's biggest undertakings of the past year, the £700,000 reimagining of the House of Dunn in Montrose. The house was designed by acclaimed Scottish architect William Adam in 1743, and it's known for its Baroque interiors with this incredible plasterwork. Until now, visitors' appreciation of the house was sort of a very traditional country house tour. But this year, the Trust took on the 4,500-piece Angus Folk Collection, which was formerly housed at Glams. And this acquisition has allowed the Trust to refresh the visitor experience at the House of Dunn. Underutilized space in the house's courtyard was converted into a museum that tells the wider story of the County of Angus, its impact on Scotland's history, the people who lived in this rural community, and the estate's natural heritage. The Trust has used multisensory interactive interpretive techniques, lighting, smells, and sounds to describe life above and below stairs and explore topics that vary, including the food and drink of Angus, the Declaration of Arbroath, toys through the ages, and the importance of horses in peacetime and war. And inside the house, visitors can take tours led by costumed guides who are playing the roles of 3 actual former residents of the House of Dunn: aristocrat Violet Jacob, house cook Isabella Petty, seen here, and estate manager William Young. These immersive tours were created by an award-winning theater director, and the Trust has also commissioned sound artist Guy Veal to develop audio installations throughout the estate. So the Trust envisions the House of Dunn as a Culzean in the East, a destination property where visitors can explore the Georgian mansion, Victorian gardens, the wider estate, and the Angus folk collection as a multi-layered story that connects the house and its people to the land. A bit further north, Pitmedden Garden is in the midst of a wonderfully creative redesign of its upper parterre gardens, which are circled in this photograph. Pitmedden is one of Aberdeenshire's most well-known gardens. It's elaborate, it's formal. It was originally laid out in the late 17th century. Just before the pandemic, the Trust engaged landscape architect Chris Beardshaw to reinterpret the classic parterre style for the modern world. And he undertook extensive historical research. He looked at 17th century color palettes, textile designs, French Renaissance garden inspirations, and he analyzed visitor movements to come up with his plan. And here you see on the left, a drawing that he got from Vaux-le-Vicomte, and on the right is Beardshaw's plan for the upper parterre at Pitmedden. He decided to create what he's calling a deconstructed parterre of bulbs, herbaceous plants, and grasses, with the hope that the garden, and this is a quote from Chris, would fully interact with visitors as they would be enveloped by a decorative plant tapestry. This parterre terrace will then become the antithesis of the lower garden, from which an elevated view provides visitors with a look back in time. And the garden is being installed. This is what it looked like last month, but these plants will grow, and as you walk through them, you'll be able to experience the smell and the scent, the feeling of being in the midst of these plants. And it will open to the public in June 2022. I also had the chance to head down to Glasgow to visit one of my favorite Trust properties, Alexander Greek Thompson's Holmwood House. This is a remarkable family home from the mid-19th century. It's known for its distinctive neoclassical design that unifies the exterior and the interiors. While the house was closed to the public, the Trust team was able to complete the restoration of interior paint schemes in most of the formal rooms. The left, you see the dining room, which had been completed. On the right is the parlor. And everywhere you look, there are acanthus leaves, gilding, stars. The Trust has also left in place the evidence of the original decorative scheme uncovered during conservation. If you can see my cursor, you can see here, that's what they found under the layers of paint and wallpaper that they replicated in the parlor. And this is upstairs in the withdrawing room, and the ceiling, you can see where they found this just incredible gilding. They worked with a local craftsperson to recreate this just extraordinary interior. The next step of the project is to install custom carpets adapted from pattern books of the era. This is happening now. The final choices are there on the left. And when the house reopens in the spring, its interpretation will focus on Thompson's design and his influence across Glasgow. In many ways, the Glasgow style that came after was a reaction to and an evolution of Thompson's work. And speaking of the Glasgow style, I finally had the chance to visit the Hill House and see it all boxed up. As many of you will remember, Charles Rennie Mackintosh's domestic masterpiece was surrounded by a temporary permeable mesh box about 3 years ago. The goal of this box is to let the house dry out and stabilize while a conservation solution is developed, and the box allows, you see here the stairs and scaffolding, allows never before seen views of the Hill House. In many ways, it feels like the house has become a museum artifact itself, and Mackintosh's design can be explored in detail from multiple perspectives. You can really get a sense of sort of some of these fairy tale moments that the house has. The Trust right now is developing an augmented reality app that you'll use on site when you're on site with your phone. It will launch in the spring, and it will allow visitors to see in real time where moisture is penetrating and impacting the historic interiors. And this data is being used by the Trust as it continues a search for the solutions to issues of water ingress and material failure on the exterior of the building. One of the installations I'm most excited to experience myself in 2022 is a replica 17th century turf house at Glencoe. Over the past 5 years, archaeological excavations in the Glen have provided a glimpse into the lives of the people who made their homes there before the infamous massacre in 1692. And the Trust has constructed a turf house using talented local craftspeople, traditional techniques, and materials sourced from Glencoe and the Cairngorms. The first step was to raise a cruck frame out of timber. This was completed entirely by hand, requiring a lot of people power. There are hundreds of complicated joints held in place with 3,500 hand-whittled wooden pegs. And once the structure was solid, wattle walls were constructed using flexible hazel wands passed in and out of upright posts. That's where this building gets the name Creel House, because they provided a creel basket-like interior framework. And then turf cutters cut and laid chunky blocks of turf that you can see here to construct the exterior walls. These are laid in an intricate herringbone pattern, which provides maximum strength and stability. Mud masons mixed up a concoction made of Glencoe cow manure, straw, and clay to create the daub, which they applied to an internal partition wall, which divides the building between a living room for the humans and a byre for livestock. You can see there's no chimney or roof hole on this house. Our goal is for visitors to be able to see, hear, feel, and breathe the way of life that's difficult to imagine today, getting a sense of the dark, smoky interior of this house and what it was really like to live in the Highlands in the 17th century. And I'm going to end today quickly by talking about our biggest effort over the next year, and in fact, for the next few years to come, and that's our implementation of a master plan for the island of Canna. This tiny Hebridean island holds an outsized place in Scotland's history. Archaeological evidence suggests human habitation as early as 5000 BCE. There are strong ties to early Christianity, connections to the nearby island of Iona. And Canna's coastline provides sanctuary to over 20,000 breeding seabirds and scores of other wild creatures, porpoises, whales, puffins, eagles, as well as a year-round community of about 20 individuals. The Trust acquired Canna in 1981 from John Lorne Campbell, a pioneering Gaelic scholar, and his wife, Margaret Fay Shah. She was an American-born folklorist and photographer. And over the decades, the couple amassed one of the most important archives of Scots Gaelic language and culture in the world. A cornerstone of our work is preserving their house, Canna House, and making their home, the garden, and the remarkable collection accessible to visitors. This includes an update to Canna House's mechanical and electrical systems, ensuring the safety of the archive, enabling internet connectivity for researchers from around the world. Historic outbuildings are going to be repurposed for use as scholar accommodations. Curators and educators are reinterpreting the house, garden, and views. And equally important, vital updates are being made to the harbor infrastructure to ensure biosecurity, to allow visitors to the island, and to sustain the local economy. You'll be hearing a lot from us about Canna in 2022. whether you're able to visit in person or virtually, whether you're headed to Aberdeenshire or to Glasgow, there's so much new to see and experience at the National Trust for Scotland Properties in 2022. We're delighted that American support has played some role in making that happen. And I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share some of these new initiatives with you this afternoon. Thank you.
Kirsten, there is always so much going on. Thank you for bringing it all to focus. And now we're going to speak to Eileen Crawford, who is joining us from Glasgow Life. Eileen, are we there?
Hello. Yes, I am indeed, Madam President. Hello, how are you?
I'm not too bad. So we're delighted you're able to join us. You're the head of tourism and conventions at Glasgow Convention Bureau and responsible for the successful positioning of Glasgow as a conference destination for national and international associate meetings. As a keen supporter of meetings industry, you are currently sitting on the board of ICCA as destination sector co-chair. Collaboration for you is key, which it is for all of us who are involved in this conference. It's all about Glasgow's team approach, where working together, building alliances, successful partnerships benefit the client and ultimately enhance the delegate and visitor experience. And as always, we know there is so much going on in Glasgow. So can you start us off in what we can be looking forward to in 2022?
I can indeed, Madam President. Thank you so much. And I've actually been very thrilled and excited by Amina and Kirsten's presentations, as I'm so lucky to live local. I can even walk to Homewood House. The last time I saw it, it was going through its refurbishment. So it's amazing to see those photographs, Kirsten. Thank you so much. So the kind introduction, Madam President, indeed, Head of Tourism and Conventions, and looking ahead to 2022, the big point is we really want you to come and visit all of our American, North American and Canadian friends and relatives and enthusiastic supporters. We really do miss you. In 2019, over 25% of our visitors came from North America. So the city isn't the same without you, and we can't wait to welcome you back. I do have a short video for those that don't know Glasgow. And for my Wi-Fi and your Wi-Fi, it is a very short video. So if it is a bit clunky, then we'll be back shortly. So let me introduce you to my city. Well, actually, it'd be better if you hear the sound. So let me try that again so you can hear some music with it. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Glasgow. I can send those links if it was a bit clunky on the Wi-Fi, but I wanted to do a little bit of a city introduction.
So in the coming months, you're going to start the year off with Celtic Connections. Indeed. So what have we got to look forward to from Glasgow that's coming up?
So in 2022, we are going to launch our music tourism presentation of our city. So Eddie Reader was mentioned earlier today, and Eddie has very kindly voiced over the tour for our city sightseeing bus. The team at Glasgow Life, who look after tourism and conventions on behalf of the city, are working hard to launch Glasgow as a music tourism city in 2022, but that story will continue further into the future. And in March 2022, the Borough Collection opens again after being closed for a few years. Many of you may remember that the Borough Collection opened to much acclaim in 1983 and was very much seen as the renaissance for our city, just shortly before 1990, when Glasgow was proclaimed European City of Culture. So this March, the Borough Collection, set in Leafy Pollock Park in the south side of the city, reopens to the public. There has been an immense campaign for looking to see where we could get fundraising, and thank you to everyone from North America who have contributed to that. If you want to see more about the collection, there's a website dedicated to what will be on display, and it is simply boroughcollection.com. So you can go and see some of your old favourites if you visited before, or if you don't know about the Borough Collection, there's a lovely story there. So in 1944, Sir William Burrell and Lady Burrell gifted over 9,000 items from their personal collection to the city of Glasgow. The caveat was that the collection must be housed out with the city itself. So when the Stirling Maxwell family donated their grounds, Pollock House's grounds, to the city of Glasgow, that became Pollock Park. And that is where the Borough Collection has been housed since 1983. So the refurbishment of the collection has allowed over a third of the collection that hasn't been seen before to now be redisplayed. So it's a third larger than it was before. So we have 75 years of Sir William Burrell's collection, 6,000 years of history in this refurbished, rejuvenated Borough Collection that we're all very excited to welcome back. So many of you that know the Borough Collection may remember that the really famous artifacts that are there, the stained glass collection, is one of the largest collections of Degas paintings anywhere in Europe. And the tapestries are a great draw as well. So some of the most ancient tapestry collection and the private collection now owned by the city of Glasgow. The most expensive piece that Sir William ever spent his money on was £14,500 on a Frans Hals painting. So that will be there as very much part of that collection as well. We're all very much looking forward to welcoming that back. So that's the big story from Glasgow Life Glasgow Museum's perspective. And it's a lovely way to start the year looking at the Borough Collection coming back to life.
We had a lovely presentation about the Borough yesterday, which was fantastic. So, and it's great for all those who weren't with us yesterday to hear of the importance of the Borough opening and what it will bring to Glasgow. And congratulations on all you did with COP26. That was brilliant.
Very kind. And I think that's a huge theme going forward as well, is the sustainable tourism and responsible tourism that Janie from Visit Scotland spoke to you about earlier in your conference. That's very much part of the focus for our Dear Green Place and People Make Glasgow Greener strategy. It's very important that we look at our responsible tourism for the planet as well.
So now you'll stay with us for the panel. And now we're going to turn to Giles Ingram. And Giles, are you with us? I think Giles is there. So Giles, wonderful. I was so worried about your Wi-Fi, as you reported to me earlier in the week. So Giles is Chief Executive of the Abbotsford Trust, the home of Sir Walter Scott. And Giles is responsible for one of Scotland's most valuable heritage attractions, Abbotsford, the home of Sir Walter Scott. With a degree in history followed by many years in the tourism industry, Giles has led Abbotsford's renaissance since 2015, joining shortly after a substantial restoration program of the house. He's now leading on plans for further restoration of the gardens and estate buildings and improvements to the visitor's experience. The Abbotsford Trust is a small independent charity in the Scottish borders which cares for and welcomes visitors to Scott's home and the internationally significant historic collection and library he amassed in his lifetime. An adjoining wing built by Scott's descendants is today luxurious, self-catering, largely furnished with original artwork and furniture. Coinciding with the Year of Stories, the Trust is leading an international celebration of the 250th anniversary of Scott's birth in 2021 and 22. And so now may I hand over to you, Giles, to hear what's ahead for us in 2022.
Hello and welcome to Abbotsford, the home of Sir Walter Scott, here in the beautiful Scottish borders. My name is Giles Ingram and I'm Chief Executive of the Abbotsford Trust, the small independent charity which cares for Sir Walter Scott's home, gardens, and 120 acres of his estate on the River Tweed and the woodlands of the Scottish borders. Delighted to be joining you at this conference today. I'm here to talk to you about the 250th anniversary of Sir Walter Scott and what so many organisations, including ourselves here at Abbotsford, are planning for next year. I thought that I'd start off by just taking a little look back at how we started the anniversary year back in 2021. So, in March 2021, we kicked off the anniversary celebrations on behalf of 60 or more organisations across Scotland and further afield, with a really dramatic light show projected onto the walls of Smailham Tower. Smailham Tower is an old fortified tower, one of the many which dot the borderlands as part of that very warfaring period of mayhem which preceded Scott. And he spent many years of his childhood in the shadow of that tower because it sat on Smailham Farm where his grandparents were farming. He was sent there for benefit of his health, having contracted polio as a child, and it's really the seat of so much of his inspiration and where he was exposed to so many stories of the borders. What better way to launch with this fantastic light show? We had a wonderful year last year celebrating 250th anniversary, and those celebrations continue all the way through to August of 2022, a full year from birthday to birthday for Scott. Here at Abbotsford, the highlight for us was celebrations on Scott's birthday on August the 15th, his 250th birthday, you might like to say, when we ran our first ever event called Scottfest, which was a romp through so many stories of Scott, so very much inspired by his best-selling novel Ivanhoe, with medieval jousting in the shadow of the house, archery, old cannons and gunfire, and of course a fantastic big birthday cake to Sir Walter himself. But Abbotsford was just one of many, many organisations across Scotland, and including the clan societies, the American Scottish Federation, of course, further afield celebrating the anniversary. So on our website, walterscott250.com, you'll find a recap of what happened and a look ahead as plans are confirmed for 2022. That partnership has included museums, galleries, festivals, music. We've had concerts, we've had real exhibitions, we've had online exhibitions. As we've navigated the complexities of COVID and getting back to real life, of course. We've even had a partner in Naples with the Naples Opera House, where, of course, it was in 1835, I believe, that Lucia de Lammermoor was first performed, taken from Scott's Bride of Lammermoor novel, and an opera which has been phenomenally successful ever since. In fact, I think from about 1906 through to 1974, it was never off a single season of the Met in New York's opera season, which is quite incredible. So I'm now going to walk us into Abbotsford, into Scott's house, where I'm going to talk about the coming year and how you can join with us in celebrating Scott's 250th anniversary in Scotland. Follow me. So welcome to Sir Walter Scott's dining room here in his house in Abbotsford, which, as you look around me, you'll see is set for Christmas. We're going to be opening tomorrow to visitors who will be coming around Sir Walter Scott's house to see it very much, we think, as it would have been set out for family Christmases in the 1820s, and it really is beautiful. This is Scott's actual dining table here in his dining room, so I'm sure it's seen some great fun around it over the years. As I was standing outside the house, I was taking you back through the 250th anniversary celebrations with so many people and organisations last year. I could add to that a great deal more. For example, we still have been sold across the world the Royal Mint's commemorative coin for the 250th anniversary, luxurious volumes of Rob Roy reprints, and of course Caroline McCracken-Flesher, our very own, has printed a book, as have others, exploring the ongoing legacy of Sir Walter Scott. There are so many ways still to enjoy the fruits of 2021 before we set foot into 2022. So I'd now like to talk a little bit about the year ahead, which we're just about to set foot into. The anniversary will be celebrating all the way through to Scott's birthday once again in August. And that's another fantastic date for us because, as we've already explored earlier in this conference, August the 15th, 2022 will actually be the 200th anniversary of George IV's visit to Scotland, masterminded by Sir Walter Scott, of course. Sir Walter Scott was given charge of masterminding George IV's triumphal entry into Edinburgh and turning it into a real event. Incredibly, Scott had just 3 weeks from beginning through to George IV's visit to plan an event and a spectacle which attracted some 300,000 spectators onto the streets of Edinburgh to celebrate George IV's entry. It was marked by so many festivities, balls, the Highland Revival, performance of Rob Roy at the theatre. Much of this you've heard before my talk. So if Scott had 3 weeks to prepare for that and pull off something absolutely incredible, hopefully we'll be able to do him proud with a little bit more of a run-in for 2022. The highlight for us here at Abbotsford will once again be our August event, Scottfest. So we're going to be planning that event, which will take place on the weekend nearest to his birthday, August the 12th to the 14th, in the height of summer here in his beautiful Scottish Borders grounds. We're going to be taking our inspiration this year, of course, from George IV's visit. There's plenty to have fun with there, from celebrating the tartan and Highland revivals, his love of whiskey perhaps when it comes to the evenings, opportunities to do a little bit more partying in the evening, and I think Scott would have approved of that. We'll doubtless build on the real successes of last year with jousting and archery and musket fire, and all the fun of the family there. What I would like to say to everybody listening here today, though, is that we're going to be thinking of ways for you to come over to here, to Abbotsford in Scotland, and join in with that. Not just to come as part of the audience, but if you would like to talk to us about ways in which you could actually participate in those festivities at Scottfest in August, please do let us know. We're going to be putting our plans together in the new year, and we'd love to hear from you, because we would really love you to be coming here, walking with us, celebrating with us, partying with us in memory of Sir Walter Scott in the beautiful grounds that we've got on the banks of the River Tweed. I think we need to do some great flag waving, create some ceremony and pomp and pageantry, because Scott would have really approved of that, and we could really have some great fun together. So thank you so much for hearing from me here at Abbotsford. I'm going to say goodbye from Scott's drawing room with the fantastic Rayburn portrait of Sir Walter Scott up here behind me. So it's wonderful to see you all. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I believe I will be seeing you a little bit later for some questions and answers. Goodbye.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you're back with us, Giles, but that was wonderful. So, Bill, shall we assemble everybody and have some questions?
Yeah, let's get everybody on. I see Giles is back as an attendee, but I don't know if he came in on another device, or is he back in? If he came in or he's trying to get going on another device. Oh, there he is. Okay, he's coming back.
Oh, Giles, it's so good to see you.
There we go.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything? We have just taken a wonderful tour of Abbotsford and seen all these wonderful rooms, and as they've always been.
Yes,
Can you
thanks.
talk a little bit about Scotfest? maybe that's coming up?
Yes, thank you, Camilla, and sorry about the technical glitch I had earlier.
Oh, we've had plenty of odd bits of them happening.
Yeah, so we're putting our plans together for Scottfest, our big August birthday bash for Sir Walter Scott. We're putting those plans together in the new year. And I think I'd just like to repeat what I said on that little video from me, which is that we would really like to make this an event that people can participate in and be part of the fun, not just come along as a spectator. So if there's anybody listening today who they're involved in an organization, have a group of people that they would like to speak on behalf of, then I'll be really fascinated to hear from you. We could put together some ideas, but really basically what we want to do is we want to create some real pomp and pageantry, get some banners, some flags, get people dressing up, and be a little bit irreverent and just have a lot of fun. We've got loads of fantastic history to draw on, and we know that Sir Walter Scott never took anything too seriously. What was most important was having a bit of fun and getting together. So we've got the right spirit to draw on there.
Wonderful. So over to you, Bill, for the round table.
First thing I'd like to do is a question for Giles. I'm assuming for Giles. There's Patricia Gorman's asking: is there any volumes of Scott that provide a modern English version? I guess that comes from the earlier remarks about the difficulty with accessibility of the vocabulary. Is there anything that's out there?
Possibly. I have to be honest, I haven't come across any. There are certainly abridged versions of his novels, which have been designed to make them a little bit more easy reading. And there's nothing to be ashamed of in that. I mean, Scott, he was one of the first authors to write almost phonetically in the Scots language. You do need to get through that sometimes to get into it. But I find the trick is to read it fast. And the faster you read it, the more it flows. And pretend you're listening to somebody, and you'd be amazed how quickly you get to do that. But the more abridged versions as well, I suppose the style of writing in the early 19th century was very descriptive. And of course, it's because of the Scots descriptive writing that it puts so much of Scotland on the map for the first time, and sparked the tourism industry that's still going strong today. Nonetheless, there are abridged versions which perhaps cut to the action a little bit faster.
There is a remark from Jeannie Calder, from Charlie Sherwood and Carolyn McCracken Fletcher, that Jeannie Calder has a good edited version of Waverley. And Giles, you're making me think that perhaps you could recommend a whiskey that would help with that as well.
Well, I could. I mean, there are plenty, but actually, funnily enough, I'd be amiss if I wasn't to recommend Abbotsford's own whiskey, which only just came in from the distillers for the first time 2 weeks ago. So we've had our own whiskey produced by the Holyrood Distillery, which is a young distillery in Edinburgh from a master blender. So there is that. And then, of course, there is a new Borders distillery, which is opening up. It opened up about a year ago, but its first whiskey will be available next year, I believe, the Borders distillery, and that's in Hoyk, in the Scottish Borders. So if you were to come south of Edinburgh, you've got a good couple of choices there.
Amina, do you have something to add on Scott?
Yes, thank you. I was just putting it in the chat there, actually. It was just to say that it's not an English version, but Stuart Kelly has recently written a book about Walter Scott that came out just last year, I think. And it's really accessible and it gives you a good sort of overview. So I actually think it's a nice place to start if you want to help get into it, into Scott at the beginning. So I'll find the link and put it in the chat for anyone that's interested.
Thank you. I'd like to lead on with a remark that Buster House had provided earlier on that piqued my interest on marketing. Buster, you had mentioned that there was going to be that you're going to be doing some different marketing, more to the local domestic market as opposed to in the immediate future, as opposed to international. I'm just curious, how is that being approached by any of the other panelists at this point? Is there a change to, are we looking at what would be the difference in the target and the message that you could see coming out of the pandemic for your respective locations?
Eileen, I think that would be good for you, talking to Glasgow.
Delighted to come in there. Thank you for the question, William. So our audience has been very local over the last couple of years, and we have enjoyed welcoming people from Scotland to Glasgow. So it's been quite interesting. There's been a huge interest in the UK. I'm not sure if it's the same where you all are, in going rural or seaside. So the cities have actually found themselves quieter, which is a shame. But we do realise that nighttime economy and the wintertime actually work quite well together. Camilla, you mentioned Celtic Connections, the Winter Music Festival, and that will be a very local audience. But what we're really keen to do is make sure we're promoting the destination in our city for overnight stays, the vibrancy of the restaurants, the traditional pubs with the traditional music. They need people to come in and stay in the city. So overnights are very much what we are focusing on, but that tends to be more local. Although I must say, you will see Expedia, we're working with Expedia, and Scotland is Calling is a Dream Now, Travel Later campaign. And there will be a Glasgow edition for that launching January to March. And that is targeting very much our key and warmest markets. That includes North America.
Amina, would you say that you're seeing your marketing change?
Actually, it's interesting because I think there was talk earlier about the hybrid events, and certainly what we're seeing is that just like the book festival, hybrid events have allowed us to reach a much, much wider audience. But at the same time, I agree with some of the things in the conversation previously, that human beings love human physical experiences. And I think there's something really important about the serendipity that those experiences provide as well, that you can find things and see things that you haven't seen before, people, books, museums, artifacts, whatever. And just being in person is really amazing as well. So I think certainly we are marketing to an internal audience because of COVID. Edinburgh's had so many more tourists from Scotland and from the whole of the UK, actually. But on the other hand, we're still value everyone across the world and our global connections. And so we're still very much trying to do that. And actually our social media and our hybrid events have allowed us to do that really well recently.
I'll ask Giles or Kirsten to add into that. Kirsten?
Yeah, I'll just say that even before the pandemic, the Trust was really making an effort to reach more local audiences and serve as a resource for local communities. And what I was struck by when I was there last month is how much the team is looking at changing exhibitions and changing tours or specific tours about specific themes. I mentioned yesterday, I took a tour at Gladstone's Land that was focused on food. And in each of the floors, you experience a different century of life in a building on the Royal Mile. And you eat food from the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. And so they're trying to do things that are beyond just the traditional house museum tour. So you'll want to come back and try something new, delve into a new story. And I would say also that's really the vision behind the program at the House of Dunn. What is so amazingly successful at Culzean is that there's always something to do. You can come any day. If you live in Glasgow, you can drive down on the weekend and you can either go to the garden or the country park or the playground or just the cafe. And so we're really trying to create destinations that local visitors will want to use and feel a sense of ownership for. of course, my job's getting Americans over there, and nothing beats, being in the actual place. So, yeah.
And Buster, how are you finding the reaction to next year? You are concentrating mainly on the UK European market.
Well, we went on sale on the 1st of December, and we've one of the many things that we have updated and enhanced is the ticketing system. We have a system called Secutix now, and you can sit in the seat of your choice. And you can turn your head and you can see what you can see precisely from that seat. And indeed, you can compare and contrast the seat you're sitting in with the seat in a different place and simultaneously. So it's all very clever. And on at the end of midway through last week, we'd sold 51% of our tickets within 8 days. But there's always quite a surge at the beginning. So we sold, and we projected conservatively, although we've sold out every year for the last 22 years at the Tattoo. We're projecting an 85% revenue because we need to be pragmatic about what we're trying to achieve. There is a bit of an urban myth in the past because we have sold out. The tickets are impossible to get, a bit like Ed Sheeran. They aren't. If you talk to taxi drivers anywhere in Scotland, they'll say, "Oh yeah, well, I really like to have gone to the Tattoo." Well, they speak slightly differently, but really like to have gone to the Tattoo, but they're always sold out. They're always sold out. They're not always sold out. And even almost on the day, you can get a ticket for the Tattoo. So please don't fall for that trope. And if you do have an interest and you're enterprising enough from the United States or from Canada to come across, we will hold a safe event and we will be delighted to see you and you will get a ticket.
And will they need to make ticket reservations for Scottfest, Giles?
Well, one of the wonderful things we have at Abbotsford is beautiful grounds, pretty extensive grounds, all the way from woodland, all the way from the house down to the Tweed. So capacity isn't going to be a problem. There are always going to be tickets available. So that won't be a problem at all. But one of the things that we've found all the way through the last couple of years is that those grounds and the walks, the woodland walks and the riverside walks, which Walter Scott himself laid out, have never been so popular. People coming to walk on the estate. We reckon the numbers went up about 400% over the course of the last couple of years. And so one of the things that we've learned from that we'll take forward into next year is to make the outdoors that much more enjoyable, so that we'll be not just Scottfest, but there'll be lots of other activities and entertainment throughout the year, and a lot more children's activity as well. So anyone who's listening who might be wanting to come over with little ones, there'll be a lot more for them to do than there has been in the past. And for those who are of a more historic nature, we'll be starting to restore Scott's beautiful glass house in the walled gardens next year as well. So you'll be able to see that happening, and there's a lot of archaeology there and a story to tell of one of the first walled garden heating systems anywhere in Britain. So if you're a geeky walled garden heating person, then this is your year.
So shall we do a last roundup, Bill?
Yeah, I think the only thing perhaps to add to the audience is one of the concerns we always have, of course, is safety. And I'm thinking there's probably some things that you can tell us about what has happened as far as education of your staff and your participants. What is going on with that as far as the safety protocols and so that we can say, yeah, we know they're doing their job. Buster?
Shall I start a bit with that? Well, the Tattoo has quite a tradition for the rigor of its planning. We run this enormous event in an unusual setting, and managing a very large crowd, 9,500 people in these very steeply raked seats in a Scotland's most historic and valued monument of the 220 which are listed. The Edinburgh Castle dates back 1,800 years, and we have done that safely for 70 years. And some of that, dare I say it, having been a Marine for 34 years, is a consequence of the military planning that we bring to bear. So we're very rigorous, and such was the analysis that we did for this year, although we didn't end up by running the tattoo. We ended up by sharing it with Scottish Government and with the rest of the festivals Edinburgh, and indeed our analysis on how to manage crowds safely, right through from the practical and physical aspects of queuing. And as I talked earlier about the movement of people from transportation hubs, and then how we would use technology, whether it was PCR codes or digital ticketing, to avoid congestion and to ensure that people were checked meticulously and that their ticket allocations were aligned with the necessary COVID vaccinations, and as the government has sort of caught up with COVID passports and the like. But this year we were going to run an event at 1 meter plus, as opposed to the stipulated 2 meters, because the Scottish Government had sufficient confidence in our ability to manage this thing safely. So they were prepared to allow us to go ahead with a smaller social distance. And as I've said before, in our case, rather as for Giles in his garden, our venue is better ventilated than most at 250 feet above mean sea level. Anthony mentioned planning for getting to net zero. Edinburgh is looking at achieving net zero by, in other words, being a carbon neutral city by 2030, and we similarly will do that. But one of the aspects of climate change is actually extreme weather events, and that's something that we're planning for as well. It's as much to do with carbon neutrality as the fact that we're all increasingly going to be envisaging extreme weather events. And that's also something we're planning for 10, 20 years hence. So safety is very much top of the pops for us, as it is for everybody. And an enormous amount of thought, analysis and technology has been brought to bear to make sure that we will run this thing safely.
Thank you, Buster. If there's not anything, does anybody have critical to add to that? Because I'm noticing we're starting to run over time, and we want to provide a little 1-minute video for the tattoo. Let me know. Is there a significant thing? I just thinking, I hope that our industry education people have caught up to bring those things forward as well. But is there anything else that people have to add to it? In which case, I think what we'll do is we'll ask Jamie, do you have that video?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo.